Good afternoon, Hattiesburg. Thanks for joining us for this COVID-19 briefing for Tuesday, November 10th. We will start with today's numbers. These are system-wide numbers for Forest General, Merit Health Wesley, Hattiesburg Clinic, Cimarron, and the Moffitt Health Center at USM. As of this morning, 81,433 tests have been conducted, with 8,783 of those coming back positive, 72,116 negative, and 534 pending. In the hospital between Merit Health Wesley and Forest General today, we have 55 people who are COVID positive, which is just over the mark over the last 2 weeks, with another one under investigation. And of those 55, we have 22 who are in the ICU right now. We did see a bit of a dip from yesterday, but we're kind of staying in that 50 to 60 range. We hope that doesn't get any higher, and we'd like to see that number kind of come down over the weekend. Statewide today, we saw 939 new cases with 37 new deaths, and I'm sad to report that we've seen 4 new deaths in our area, 1 in Forest County, 3 in Lamar, bringing totals to date to 83 deaths in Forest County and 45 in Lamar. New positive cases today, Forest County reported 6, Lamar County reported 12. Since this began, Forest County now stands at 3293, and Lamar County is at 2522. Our 5-day average, where we take the number of new cases and then average it with the 2 days prior and the 2 days after, both Forest and Lamar County are between that 10 and 20 mark. Of course, we're still coming out of a weekend, so we'll see how numbers materialize over the next few days. The inside 14-day number, over the course, this is the number of people who have received their positive test result in the last 2 weeks. Kind of gives you an idea of how many active cases you could have in your community. In Forest County, that number now stands at 199. And in Lamar County, that number is at 231. Some positive news when it comes to this trend. This is the first time in quite a while that Forest County has been under the 200 mark since probably the end of September. And so that's encouraging to see, particularly encouraging that our university students have kind of come down off their totals. Compared to a week ago, last Tuesday, Forest County was at 217 inside 14 days. Again, today at 199. Lamar County up slightly from a week ago, but still metro area total down to 430. Hospitalizations still up, again, mid-50s right now, with another 2 over last week in terms of ICU admissions. Our goals continue to be protecting the vulnerable, people over the age of 60, people with underlying or chronic health conditions, preventing the overrun of the healthcare system, and of course prioritizing public health while giving the private sector the space to operate. Those things and tools that we utilize to try and accomplish those goals are widespread availability of testing, wearing masks, watching our own local data, of course listening to all voices. Today, because tomorrow is Veterans Day, we had our weekly stakeholder conference call a day early. And so what we just going to share a few sort of deeper statistics that we're getting back from our medical community. The positivity rate is down slightly. Of course, positivity rate is the percentage of total tests that come back positive. When we see large spikes in numbers, typically the positivity rate is going up. We saw that at the beginning of October. We got up to 11.31% that week of October 11th, but since then we've kind of seen a steady decrease with one aberration the week of October 25th. This week that positivity rate is 8.9%, but again we're only 2 days into the week. The average age of new positives, typically we've stayed in the upper 30s, low 40s. This week we're at 41.5. Of course, during that spike in October, we were seeing a lot of those positive cases from university students and from our school-age children. So that's why you see that average age of new positives kind of lower down the scale early and middle of October. And then the percentage of cases under the age 20. We watch this because we don't want anyone to get this. But typically when you have a large percentage of our new positives under the age of 20, you're not going to see that manifest itself into a lot of hospitalizations because typically younger people get over it a little bit faster. Not always, but typically. This week, 20% of new positives, again, we're only 2 or 3 days in, 20.8% are under the age of 20. One question we ask is where are the new cases coming from, the active cases? And so talk to Forest County Emergency Management right now. Based on their information, the largest share of active cases in Forest County, at least, are coming from outside the city of Hattiesburg. That's South Forest County, places outside of Petal. They're having more cases than the actual city of Hattiesburg, and we're certainly helped the fact that USM only has 8 cases and William Carey doesn't have any right now. But we do encourage our folks in the outskirts of Hattiesburg and rural areas to continue wearing your mask, particularly as we go into the holidays. Try to practice social distancing and avoiding large crowds. We also ask kind of where hospitalizations are coming from. Not that it really matters, because if they overrun our healthcare system, everyone is affected, but we just kind of want to see which counties kind of have the highest amounts. Right now, Forest and Covington County have the biggest share of those hospitalizations. Again, these are our 2 hospitals combined with 8 apiece. Lamar County has 7, Perry County has 5, and then we have about 12 to 13 other counties that have smaller groups. Some city news we want to share with you. We just finished paving on yesterday the Audubon Westwood neighborhood. They finished their water project in late summer, early fall, and so glad to get that paving project done. We'll now be moving back to Wards 2 and 5. And finally, our act of courage. Every year there is a Veteran of the Year that's chosen by the Hattiesburg Veterans Committee. And this year the committee chose a name that is no stranger to people who live in Hattiesburg, and that's Vernon F. Damer, Jr. Most of us are familiar with the contributions and legacy of his father, Vernon F. Damer, Sr. This is Vernon F. Damer, Jr. He is 91 years old and served 20 years in the Air Force. He served in both Vietnam and Korea, and he lived all over the world. After he retired from the military in the early 70s, he worked as a civilian for the Marines, and then came back to the Hattiesburg area, to his home community of Kelly Settlement back in the 80s. And for the last 38 years, he's given his time on various causes, working to, again, take that legacy of his father and grandfather as his own and make the community a better place. And so he was one of the founding members of the African American Military History Museum. He works with youth like the Boy Scouts of America and the Grants Child Care Center in Eatonville. He works to help African Americans in preserving and retaining ownership of land and air property, and he continues that Damer legacy of voter turnout and voter registration, and fulfilling the motto of his father, which is, if you don't vote, you don't count. And when we announced this award last Thursday and he came up to speak, you won't meet a more a person of quiet strength, great character, proven courage, and just humility, as his family has with him. And talked about just being a regular guy and low key, and being an honor to be recognized, that he was taught by his family to make the community better. And he always, even though he lived in Europe and lived all these other places, he wanted to get back home because he had a connection with the values of his home. And this Veteran of the Year program is a big deal. It started many years ago. There's only 16 living Veterans of the Year right now, and every year the Veteran of the Year is chosen by the veterans, by past recipients of the Veteran of the Year award. Mr. Vernon F. Damer Jr. will be honored tomorrow at our Veterans Day ceremony, which we want to tell you about right now. But it's also going to feature a keynote from Colonel Rick Weaver, who's the new commanding officer at Camp Shelby. But just to let you know, again, we talked about this yesterday, Veterans Day events. Tonight at 7 o'clock at the Veterans Park, we will have read by the Air Force ROTC at Southern Miss all 173 names of people in our community who have died throughout the military conflicts in our nation's history. That's going to be at 7 p.m. tonight. And then at 11 a.m. tomorrow at Veterans Park, we will have our annual Veterans Day ceremony. I hope that you will come out to one of those events or watch it on any of our social media platforms. But I would also encourage you, again, as I did yesterday, try and reach out to a veteran. This year, they have been, especially our older veterans, have been isolated, have been kind of kept apart from the rest of the world because of COVID, and they really could use some connection and someone to reach out to them. And so, again, congratulations to Mr. Vernon F. Damer Jr. We look forward to honoring him tomorrow. We will not be having a briefing tomorrow. We'll have our next briefing on Friday. So just to remind you, again, wash your hands, take care of yourself, wear a mask if you go out in public, do only what is essential, and remember, you're safer at home.